What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Bold Call Fantasy Football Podcast. This is part 2 of our players to avoid in every round of your draft. We're talking rounds 5 through 8, and we're looking at players to avoid at their current ADP. This is important stuff, so stick around. All right, let's move on to round 5, Shane. Pat Mahomes, George Kittle, Lamar Jackson, DK Metcalf, Brandin Cooks, David Montgomery, Rashod Bateman, JuJu Smith-Schuster, Darnell Mooney, J.K. Dobbins, Kyler Murray, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, the first thing I would just generally say is wide receiver, quarterback. It's a little soon for quarterbacks for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to cheat this show by choosing a quarterback as the bad pick. That's cheating. Not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, don't take quarterbacks here. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm a little surprised to see George Kittle going this soon. Just looking at the I love George Kittle as a player, but I think this is a little bit high for him. A little high for him, for my opinion. But I don't like any of those guys, to be quite honest. But actually, I'm going to throw it over to you. Why don't you give me your first player in round 5 to avoid?
Oh, man. So this one pains me as well. But the player that I've highlighted here that is just, there's too many question marks, is J.K. Dobbins. I mean, we saw just this week that Ian Rappaport came out and said that J.K. Dobbins' knee is no sure thing to be ready for week 1 due to the torn ACL from last year.
You know what? By the way, it's so long. Even for it to be in question, we're talking a full 12, 13 months for an ACL tear. What is going on with this kid's rehab?
It wasn't just the ACL, it was the LCL as well. And apparently, so I'm no doctor, but basically, so Dr. Jesse Morse, he's somebody that I've had on my shows in the past. He's a fantasy football doctor on Twitter, okay? He was talking about, so ACL is a common non-contact injury, whereas the LCL, which is on the outside of your knee, that's very uncommon because what happens is that it's when your knee buckles outward. Typically, your knee will buckle inward. It only will buckle outward when you've got contact hitting the knee to go outward. So his ACL tore and his LCL tore. So it's a significantly worse injury than a standard ACL injury. Okay. So that's the reason why it's taking so long for him to heal. Okay. But here's the thing. So J.K. Dobbins had said, this is what he responded to Mr. Ian Rappaport. He said, I might not even go on PUP because that's how good my rehab is going. And I'm damn sure going to be ready for week 1. So I don't know what to think.
Here's what I say. By the way, let's believe J.K. Dobbins. Ian Rappaport is not a credible. No. That's no Schefter. Okay, Rappaport is not credible. He just spews whatever anybody tells him. I think you got to believe J.K. Dobbins here, but there's definitely a red flag. You should be healed up by now. I don't care what kind of. If Cam Akers can come back from a torn Achilles, 2-3 weeks later, then anything's possible.
Yeah,
you got to react that I said 2-3 weeks because it felt like it was 2-3 weeks. It was 3 months later, but I was just
so here's something that's interesting that we were kind of discussing in a separate chat. It's just the fact that, and it hasn't really been discussed very much, Kevin, but this year the NFL did change the PUP rules where it's no longer 6 weeks where you're on the PUP. It's only 4 weeks. So even if a player does go on the PUP, it's a little different than in previous seasons where you're on the PUP list for 6 weeks. Still don't advocate drafting injured players.
If he's on a PUP at all,
it's a risk.
Yeah, that's a major red flag. If he's not practicing in training camp rookies reporting now today, veterans next week. If he's not in training camp, that's a major problem. I don't want a running back who starts the season on the PUP. That's a disaster. That injury flares up. You didn't practice on it enough. All of a sudden, it's flared up. Week 2, he's in, he's out. He's in, he's out of the lineup. That's a no go. So yeah, I understand why you're throwing up some caution flags on J.K. Dobbins here. And I mean, you could get Josh Jacobs a few picks later, and he's probably just the same guy, but without the injury concern. Elijah Mitchell plays a similar role.
Yeah.
So for his team, there's definitely running backs you could take a few picks later that you're going to be safer with. Dobbins has a lot of talent. He's got a little more upside, but there's definitely that re-injury risk. We'll have to wait. I think this is one we're going to wait and see on. And especially most people are drafting in mid to late August. At that point, we'll have a lot more knowledge, and he's going to massively move in his ADP. All right. You want to have, this is my favorite avoid of the entire fantasy football season.
There you go.
The most obvious, the most blatant avoid. This avoid can only come back to burn me if this team switches quarterbacks between now and this, which might happen. It might happen. So I'm not saying it ain't going to happen. But as of now, and it's funny, and this player has dropped in ADP massively since I started avoiding him when he was WR 16 and 18. So I've gotten everybody off of this guy all offseason. If you've been best balling, I've been yelling and screaming about this player for months. But now he's dropped a little bit. He's approaching where he should be going, but still a little too high. Still a little too high. I'm still fading DK Metcalf in round 5. WR24. Still a top, a WR2 for all intents and purposes. So just so I can why am I fading? Well, what are you talking about? DK Metcalf. He's got all the talent. Blah, blah, blah. He runs a 4-4. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. Last season, this guy didn't even get 1,000 yards with Russell Wilson at quarterback.
Ugh.
Russell Wilson. Now he's switching up Russ for Geno Smith. Geno fucking Smith on a team that is clearly and purposefully looking to tank a season to get a new quarterback. Now, again, all of this changes if Jimmy Garoppolo makes his way to Seattle.
Please, Lord.
I think it will happen because why wouldn't they pick up Jimmy Garoppolo? It doesn't make sense to me unless they're active. I think you're tanking even with Jimmy Garoppolo. But this version of tanking where you're like, nah, we're fine with Geno Smith or Drew Lock. Drew Lock was number 34 out of a 32 eligible starting quarterbacks. This guy was worse than backups in efficiency. He's unbelievably bad. And the only guy worse would be Geno Smith. Now, everybody's making an argument that for the couple of games that Geno played last year, that DK Metcalf had a couple good games. That's some noisy variance that you want to fade like the wind. Okay, you don't want a quarterback. You don't want a player, a wide receiver connected to Geno Smith or Drew Lock. We saw what Drew Lock did to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy over the last couple of years. We've seen just Geno Smith being horrible as a quarterback. These backups can come in for a game or two and look mildly competent, and then it all falls apart. There's a reason that Geno Smith has never even sniffed being a starter in the National Football League. I don't understand. DK Metcalf is literally living off of reputation right here. There's people who know the name. I call those donkeys. They're fucking donkeys. They know the name. So oh, JR, I've heard of him. How you've heard of him, so you're drafting. Okay, I get that you've heard of him. Are you familiar with Geno Smith as a quarterback? Now, again, all of this can change on a dime if Jimmy Garoppolo makes his way to Seattle, which isn't in the works right now. It just makes logical sense that will happen. I still think it might happen, but there's also a real possibility that the Seattle ownership wants to lose so they can get one of those two super elite quarterbacks. That's how you lose. You lose Russell Wilson, you want to do it like the Colts did it. Peyton Manning gone, Andrew Luck in, boom. Outside of what happened with Luck, they had a very real shot at next dynasty beginning 1 year gap. Seattle can do it if they tank the season. So I think they want to. And I think maybe that's if they're going to the season with Geno and Drew Lock, they're absolutely telling you, no, we're not planning to win games this year. We're here to lose.
100%. The only caveat would be the only way Jimmy G goes onto the Seattle Seahawks probably is if he gets cut. Because I don't really see the Niners trading in division.
I've heard that. I've heard that argument that in division, I don't believe in it. I don't agree with it. You know who traded?
Yeah.
Remember Miami sent Wes Welker to the Patriots for a second round pick? Like, you give me a pick, I don't care that you're my. I don't think so. I don't think that's the thing. That in division thing.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you because you cut the guy, you get zilch, nothing, nada. Say you get a 7th round pick. Isn't that better than nothing? If you know he's going to end up on Seattle anyways, you might as well just do it.
Yeah. Well, I think they'd get more for him, but at this point, it doesn't even like. There's no other team in the NFL that is a candidate unless there's a training camp injury. There's no other candidate to trade him to. Nothing. Every team is settled at quarterback. Even Atlanta with Marcus Mariota, they're like, no, we're good.
They're going to give, I mean, Atlanta's going to give Desmond Ridder. If Mariota falls flat in his face, they'll give Ridder
Mariota
a chance.
Might be good. It's all separate. That's another discussion, another day.
Yeah,
Mariota might be good. He might. He might be. I think he's got a little. I mean, people laughed at me when I said Ryan Tannehill might be good. He's got a little Ryan Tannehill in his bloodline.
I do remember there was a game where Derek Carr got hurt last. I think it was last season.
And Mariota came in and did great.
Yeah.
By the way, you know why I remember that? Because that led to $1 million winner on the showdown. Because we've been preaching play the backup quarterback on the showdowns for years, and somebody played Mariota. So like that happens.
Dang.
That happens.
Could you dance? Could
you
imagine just dancing for joy? I love it.
We do it every time. By the way, every single at this point, because of that $1 million, it only takes once. There was like 3 times last season where a backup came in and was in the nuts lineup. It was crazy. So backup quarterback. It happens all the time with running back. So it's one of those things where people are like, how did you know to play Marcus Mariota? Because we do it every week. Like we just do that. It's throw away a lineup. Anyway, all right. That does it for round 5. We're coming towards the end of this. But you've already got a ton of value out of this breakdown. Because if you're just avoiding these guys, just take the other people in ADP in those zones. You're already going to have a strong draft. And if you like this type of content, guys, whoever's watching, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. We need your likes. It really helps us out. Subscribe to the channel. You got to smash the notifications button. Help us out.
If you have questions, ask your questions because we're going to jump on in the chat. We're going to talk to you and we're going to coach you.
Right. Actually, and drop your favorite fade for each round in the comment section below. We'll comment. We'll talk about it in a future video. But I love to see those fades. Who do you guys like? It's part of the reason we're showing you the round. Tell us who you do. If you disagree, if you love some of these players, you think that DK Metcalf's going to smash this year, put that comment in there. Let me know why. Tell me why. Convince me. Listen, I can be convinced, Shane.
I'll believe when I see it, but maybe.
No, I could be convinced all the time. I changed my mind.
Yeah.
You convince me, I'm in.
You're a very pragmatic person, Kevin. You use your brain, you use logic a lot of the time. I tend to, I'm like a salmon. I'm going up the river sometimes. I like to see these things, but you tend to be pretty pragmatic with your takes. So
no, you gotta. This is fantasy football. First of all, I'm doing this for 20 plus years. I've lived through it enough times. I've seen these situations. They start to repeat themselves, and that's the beauty. I have all these situations. Speculation, hopium. There's a lot of hopium. Everybody's smoking the hopium. Oh, it's so good. I have so much hope. But here's the thing. You can't allow. Like I had a hopium. One year I got crazy high on the Kenyon Drake hopium. Like he looked so great. That fucked me. Like you just allow one mistake like that fucked so many dynasty teams, so many different situations. A whole season was lost to Kenyon Drake because he looks so amazing. That's the hopium. I'm trying to avoid those spots. And I'm trying to say, hey, what is Gabriel Davis? That's a hopium play. That's like, we saw a couple big games and we think that's going to keep happening. Let's look at the reality on the ground. Now, here we go. Round 6. You ready for this? Round 6, according to Underdog ADP, Josh Jacobs, Chris Godwin, Jalen Hurts, quarterback, Elijah Mitchell, Amari Cooper, Dalton Schultz, tight end, a little early, A.J. Dillon, backup running back, Adam Thielen, Russell Gage, Elijah Moore, Joe Burrow, Devonta Smith. There are some serious avoids in this round.
Yeah.
some very serious avoids that we got to get into. I'm going to throw, why don't you take the first one? Who do you got?
Round so six. So this is a player that we talked about. I'm not going to get into this. This isn't my player because this one's too easy. It's Chris Godwin. Avoid Chris Godwin, okay?
Yeah.
We were talking about this. This might be a controversial pick, but Dalton Schultz going in round 6 to me is a little too rich for my blood. And it's all about, not that Dalton Schultz is going to have a bad season.
But you just skipped from Chris Godwin to Schultz. Just like Godwin is so obvious.
No, it's too obvious. Dude, right, we've literally talked about Chris Godwin every single show. Yeah,
don't take injured
Don't draft Chris Godwin. Don't do it.
Don't do that. Just don't do that. So I'll allow the punt on Chris Godwin. And yes,
too much.
Don't take Chris Godwin. Don't be stupid. He's not starting this year. He's not starting. That means he's coming into the season injured. We don't take players that are injured coming into the season. If you just not do that, you're going to be in good shape. Everybody, AJ Green 2 years ago, Michael Thomas last year. You were told not to take these guys. Don't take injured guys coming into the season. All right, let's talk Dalton Schultz.
Okay, let's talk Dalton Schultz. So this guy, he's a little controversial because, yes, he was amazing last year. And, yes, I think he's going to have a good season this year. The problem is you can get guys like Dallas Goedert in round 9. I'm a Goddard guy myself. TJ Hockenson is going a full round later. Goddard. He's a god.
Semicolon. Ert.
I don't think I've ever called him Dallas Goedert in my life until today. But yeah, so Dallas Goedert a few rounds later. Listen, I like Dalton Schultz.
By the way, I thought that was just your Canadian accent coming out. Like, oh yeah.
No, I hate. Yeah, when people can say Goedert,
picking players, I like Dallas Goedert.
I'm a Dallas Goedert kind of guy. That's almost like.
Wait, don't make fun.
Don't do
You're
accents.
not allowed to do a Canadian make fun of it.
Hey, don't you know? You got to take the Dallas Goedert. I don't even know. I can't even do Canadian. I'm bad at Canadian accents.
You going to Newfoundland? All right, go ahead.
I'm going to Newfie. Anyways, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hockenson. Don't pay round 6 price on Dalton Schultz just because he's kind of fun. He's kind of sexy. There's that recency bias. Yes, we know Amari Cooper's gone, so he's going to get targets, but he's also going to have to get in the end zone a lot to pay off this round 6 value. And there's other players that we don't like, but there's some really good players in this round. There's Jalen Hurts in this round. There's Elijah Mitchell in this round. Russell Gage, Elijah Moore, which, oh my God, did you hear Elijah Moore's up to 190? He was 178 last year. Oh my God, that's a whole different conversation.
Elijah Moore, his metrics don't even. We should make a whole episode on that. This guy has some of the best wide receiver metrics we've literally ever seen in the National Football. His separation, it's crazy. So here's my thing with Schultz. Yeah. So here's my thing. The reason he's going this high is because Cowboys have no one, right? It's CeeDee Lamb and no one else to catch passes. I happen to love the rookie Jalen Turbot. We were just talking about him, and he's one of the best sleeper values in the entire draft this year. But with Schultz, I think it's legit. He will be getting more targets, but the argument is sound in the sense that TE6 in round 6, when you can get guys like Zach Ertz in round 10 or Dallas Goedert in round 9, that's or Dawson Knox in 9 or 8. That's the issue with Schultz up here. It's just he's not that different of a pick than the Hockensons or even the guy. Like I said, I love Zach Ertz this year. He's going TE 11 or 12. I think Zach Ertz will outscore or do just as well as Dalton Schultz. So why waste a pick when Elijah Moore is on the board, when Amari Cooper or Elijah Mitchell or these guys are still there? Why waste the pick on a tight end? That's the argument. It's like, I think Schultz is great, but
he finishes a tight end
pick on a tight end.
Yeah, he finishes a tight end 5 last year, scoring about 12 points per game. You look at the tight end 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, all around 9 points per game.
Yeah, there's not enough.
It's not enough juice.
Yeah. Which is why, by the way, I'm very much against, outside of Kelsey and Mark Andrews, taking any of the tight ends between 3 and 7 or 8 in these rounds. Just as soon as you didn't take Andrews or Kelsey, you just get a Goddard, get a Zach Ertz type, and move on. There's great tight ends, Albert O in the mid, Akwe-Bunam. David Njoku. There are so many good tight ends this year. It's really weird. No reason to take one of these guys this early. And there aren't that many good running back, like wide receivers. Take a wide receiver here. Take Amari Cooper. Yes. Or Russell. Well, not Russell Gage. because you take Alan Lazard over Gage.
But
anyway, take Adam Thielen here. It's fine. One more player I want to mention in round 6, and then we'll move on to round 7. Devonta Smith. This is a hopium. This is more hopium, right? Devonta Smith has no business. Listen, he's a great talent, but he's a deep ball guy playing with a quarterback that has no deep. He cannot throw it far. He can't. He's got little hands like this. See this hand? This is a hand that never did a day of work in its life, by the way. Like, you know how you deal with like railroad workers and they got all like grizzled fucking hands in Canada, and it's all like, you know, it's all beat up and it looks like a
gnarled.
Foot. Yeah, it's all gnarled. It looks
calluses.
Like a foot. Look at this hand. Yeah. Not a single callus on it. This is like if a baby was born and you touch the hand, that's the same softness.
Kevin, I don't know if
even know what I'm talking about.
I don't know if you're a Seinfeld guy. But remember George Costanza was a hand model?
Yes.
You could be a hand model. That could be you. You're
I
in
could
New York
be a
City.
Or
just outside New York City. It's perfect.
I'm told. And yeah, no calluses. So Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, he's got the little hands, man. He's got no deep ball accuracy. And Devonta Smith is just going to ruin your fantasy team. He's ruining it. And the worst part is you feel like you have to start him because he's got the name, he's got the first round draft equity, and you took him too soon in your fantasy draft. So now he's playing, but he's disappointing. And now he's competing with AJ Brown. Oh, it wasn't bad enough when he only had to compete with, he didn't do shit with Rager and like guys who literally could not catch a pass on the team. He didn't do anything. Terrible year. Now, by the way, you know how many touchdowns Jalen Hurts is throwing for per game?
Like 1 a game?
1.2. That's just like, again, Matthew Stafford's throwing for 2.7 touchdowns. Tom Brady's throwing for 3.5 touchdowns. And this guy is throwing for 1.2. Jalen Hurts takes the touchdowns for himself. Now you've got A.J. Brown on the team. You've got Dallas Ert on the team. Like, come on. Where is the scoring coming from? I love Devonta Smith as a player. He's a good player. The situation is not good for him this year. Let another sucker take him. Let a sucker take him, and you take someone better, right? Actually win your league. That's what I'm trying to do here, Shane. I'm trying to force the people to win their leagues. Just listen to the Geek. That's all you got to do. You ready for round 7, Shane?
Let's do round 7, baby.
All right. This one is chock full of turds. Round 7 needs its own show. It's crazy. Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Hopkins, Drake London, Russell Wilson, Miles Sanders, Hunter Renfrow, Trey Lance, Alan Lazard, highlight, bold, Michael Thomas, Tony Pollard, Tom Brady, Christian Kirk. That's your round 7 group.
You're going to find a flaming bag of round 7 on your porch if you drop one of these guys.
Oh my gosh. Painful. So many turds in here. I almost want to talk about the good players in round 7. Like, they're all turds except for this guy. Like, everybody but Lazard is bad. No, we're not going to do that. There's a couple players I like here, but there are some serious red flags. Serious red flag. I'll let you start us off with the injured guy because I know you like to mention the injured guys. Actually, not the injured, but the guy missing the first
6 games. DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, what was his injury last year? He had the MCLs, right? So he tore his MCL in week 14. He got surgery shortly thereafter. So he still is recovering from the knee surgery. It's not going to be a big deal because guess what? He's missing 6 games because of PEDs. So
can I tell you something though? I believe, usually players deny the PED thing, and I don't believe them. I feel like I believe Hopkins when he says when he says he didn't do anything. I feel like I believe it. I don't know why. Like, I got fooled. I don't know what's going on. Like, I kind of think like, yeah, I don't think he did it.
Man, it's just because you know what it is, and I don't know if this is a good thing or if he just seems like such a nice dude, right? Like, very well rounded. Like his mom comes to every game, and I think she's blind. He gives her the football every time he touches a touchdown. Like, he's just a nice dude.
I didn't even know about the mom story. I didn't even know that.
So he's just a cool guy, man.
Yeah, I believe him. I'm so weird. I'm such a sucker. I'm like, I believe him.
Me too.
I love DeAndre Hopkins. Regardless of that, he's not going to play for 6 weeks. That's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
What are you taking? Guys, you going to wait till week 7? I mean, okay, but like, by week 7, you've already lost your league anyway. So, what are you going to make a comeback? Remember what happens when players come back from being out for 6 weeks? They got to work him back in. The hammy gets hurt because he hasn't been playing and he didn't get the training camp. It's a real bummer when a player is out for multiple weeks. They often have little issues.
And here's the thing people don't forget, or they tend to forget with these suspensions. It's not like, DeAndre Hopkins is practicing with the team. He's in the facilities. He's in the room watching game tape with the rest of his teammates. He's literally not on the property for 6 weeks.
It's not good.
He's a ghost.
Yeah, it's bad. By the time he's back up to speed, like he comes back to the team, now he's back. It's going to be week 8 or 9. Now you're 3 weeks away from your fantasy playoffs. Hey, it's great to have, DeAndre ride in on the white horse, but he wasn't that great anyway last year. But like, he'll be a nice asset if you take him and you stash him on your bench, especially Shaoli. He's taking up a spot that could have been like a backup running back that might start a few games for you. I think he'll
I have a question for you, Kevin, just from a strategy perspective. I think I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure that people know. Okay. So we advocate don't draft hurt players and don't draft guys who are suspended to start the season because waiver wire time is important. Bye weeks start hitting, but the bye weeks actually are a little bit later this year. The first bye week is week 6. Previous years it was week 4. Does that change your strategy for players like this? Or even guys who are expected to miss maybe a couple of games, like a J.K. Dobbins. Does that come into the equation, or just kind of like it's too much?
No, I don't mind. I don't mind players that are going to miss a few games.
Yeah,
that's another story. So, like, I'll give you an example. Like Alvin Kamara, I'm down. I'm drafting that. I think he might miss 3 games. I don't give a shit. Like, I can weather that. The injured guys are way worse, and especially someone like Hopkins. Again, being out 6 weeks. The problem is when you come back, you're not up to speed. So you waste the spot. It takes till week 8, week 9. Once you know it's that long, 6 weeks, that's too long. Because, again, it takes 2 weeks, and then you're not comfortable starting him. And then you're only getting use out of the guy from week 8 or 9. Now, what happens if your team gets 2 other injuries? Now I've got to have to deal with stuff. So I like to be more diversified, unless the bargain is so extreme. So it's not so much about the bench spot. It's more about, like, when you're taking DeAndre Hopkins here, you're leaving some pretty good players on the board. And we'll talk about some of these guys. Kadarius Toney is still available. Allen Lazard is still available.
Your guy.
Lazard. He's on every team. But here's another guy that I'm going to be avoiding in round 7. He's right at the top of the round. I'm not cheating with the last guy in the round. That's not how we do it. The first guy in the round, Antonio Gibson. RB25 off the board, right? Listen, this is a sketchy pick. I hate Antonio. You got him on your fishbowl team, I think. I do not like Antonio Gibson at all this year. Here's the thing. We've been hopiuming. Hopium is the theme of this. Can you let's thumbnail this with somebody smoking hopium.
Hopium.
Just like hope coming out of a pipe. Right? Hopium. We hoped that Antonio Gibson, this converted wide receiver, was going to turn into this amazing pass-catching running back, right? But what's happened? What's the reality that our eyes have seen with Antonio Gibson? The reality is he has not emerged as a pass-catching by any stretch. As a matter of fact, he's been playing the 2-down grinder role, the between the tackles role for the Redskins, Commanders, whatever the hell they're called now, with J.D. McKissick taking all of the passing down work, or most of it. He's in there on 3rd down. Now they add Brian Robinson, who's a smasher, right? And now you've got a guy who's a goal line smasher. Antonio Gibson has a major problems with the goal line, not been able to get the ball into the end zone. Now they're saying, hey, we're going to have a 1-2 punch with Gibson and Robinson on rounds 1 and 1st and 2nd down. Rounds. What am I saying? In the 1st and 2nd down with McKissick coming. Where are the fantasy points coming from? He's not going to be in there on the goal line.
Dude, I've done it probably 30, 35 best ball drafts. Literally this much. 0 Antonio Gibson.
And then you got stuck with
I
him in
fade
the
the shit out of him in the Scott Fish Bowl because I'm happy with my team. I made my choices and I'm going to live with them and I'm going to work around it because that's what we do. We grind, baby. But Antonio Gibson, to your point, I mean, Brian Robinson, he basically only did what he did in his senior season at Alabama, but man, he had a hell of a season last year. He could be the goal line guy. Tony Gibson did have 10.
He could be
he's
running back too.
No,
he could take the job. Gibson always getting
Gibson
hurt.
Is better. No, I mean, if Gibson's hurt, obviously, yeah. But so, I mean, here's the risk, right? So Antonio Gibson, first, second down, Brian Robinson's going to spell him as a breather back, but J.D. McKissic's still back there catching balls. Gibson only had about a 10% target share last year, which is better than some of the other running backs we talked about, like Nick Chubb and even Derrick Henry, but 10%. That's still, you want closer to 15, 16% to be really considered an asset in the passing game, which is kind of ironic because guess what he was? He wasn't a running back in college. We all know this. He was a wide receiver.
Catcher, but he hasn't done it.
Yeah.
He hasn't done it. Even in games where McKissic was out, like the disappointment is real. Now, I think maybe the Washington will be a better team Wentz at the helm, like a more efficient kind of an offense, and there'll be more scoring opportunities. And maybe this will all be a moot point. It's possible. But like I said, you can't really say don't draft this guy without like mentioning who you could get a little bit later. And there are just other running backs. I think I'd rather have Devin Singletary multiple rounds later. You know, I hate to say it. Makes me feel a little gross, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris is a starting running back. Damian Harris is everything that Antonio Gibson is and more on a better team for cheaper. Why not just take Damian Harris? He's literally everything that you want out of Antonio Gibson, but more on a better team that will score more frequently, locked into the goal line work as well. Like, just take him. He's the same guy, except better. All right, here's another player I don't like, and I hate this guy. In round 7. You don't want to take them. Now, I hate this guy. I don't have hatred for any player. I like them all. They're all badasses. But Hunter Renfrow, round 7 ADP, and especially in an underdog, which is a half-point PPR format, is particularly egregious. Listen, you cannot expect Hunter Renfrow to do what he did last year, a target and volume monster, when the team added Devontae Adams and gets back a healthy Darren Waller. It just doesn't make sense. Hunter Renfrow was a target of opportunity last year. There was no one else. They had no one else to throw to. Ruggs in jail for murder. Brian Edwards, complete bust. Waller.
I felt like you wanted me to say something to that.
No.
Oh God, that was just like.
I mean, what's more to say? What an asshole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What an asshole he is. Fucked up my dynasty team. Don't even get me started. But also, you know, fucked up his own life and other lives. So what a scumbag. And Waller was hurt. Brian Edwards, complete bust. And they had no one else to throw to. Zay Jones actually did fine. I actually made some money with Zay Jones last year. Yeah, Zay Jones was fine. But like they had no one. So what ends up happening is they kept throwing to Hunter Renfrow. And at some point after 12 or 13 or 14 targets a game, he started putting up great scores because who wouldn't put up a great score when they have 14 targets? They even scored a couple of touchdowns. Now they got Devontae Adams. He needs to be fed. He's hungry. He's so
hungry.
He's very hungry. Right? Still elite. Darren Waller. If you like Darren Waller, I'm not super high on him, but if you like Darren Waller's an 8-9 targets per game kind of guy. If he's taking 8 or 9 targets and Devontae Adams is getting 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 targets, there's not that much left for Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow's 5 targets, 55 yards. That's what you should expect. No touchdown most weeks. This is just not a spot. Again, he's going ahead of Allen Lazard. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why would you take Hunter Renfrow, a non-touchdown scoring WR3, for the WR1 of Aaron Rodgers? What? These are donkeys. And this one change, just taking Lazard ahead of Renfrow and I don't want to talk about Michael Thomas with that upside. That will cause you to win versus lose your league. That is a league losing decision. When you took Hunter Renfrow ahead of, and Alan Lazard was still on the board. Why? It makes no sense, Shane. It makes no sense.
This is a nice zone for upside players. Like guys we talked about, you could draft Drake London, upside. Russell Wilson, nice little spot for an upside QB. Trey Lance, upside. Alan Lazard, upside and probably pretty safe. Tony Pollard,
safe
upside.
Floor. Yeah, you got your upside guys. London. I want the last guy. I'm not going to warn people off this guy. I'm on him.
Right.
Michael Thomas. On it.
Yeah.
Upside. You talk about upside? I'll take my chances with Michael Thomas. Guys running around. Last year I was off Michael Thomas, injured coming into the season, never came back. That was a great avoid. I think he's fine. I think he might be healthy. I'll roll the dice on Michael Thomas here at this part of the draft. This is where I take a shot on a guy with Jameis Winston, a real quarterback. Michael Thomas, there's no reason why, if he comes back healthy, he won't smash this year. I'll take my shot on him in round 7 definitely over Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow, what are you, crazy?
I mean, Michael Thomas, I got that Bunsen burner going. I'm starting to heat up just a little bit on Michael Thomas because
as news comes out with Michael Thomas, he's going to shoot up the draft board. The fact that you're getting him in round 7 now, if he's practicing with the team in 3 weeks from now, Michael Thomas is probably the biggest. He's going to be around 4. Like he's going to move all the way from round 7. He'll make his way all the way up to round 4. That's a bargain. I love that. I love getting the discounts.
Yeah, now's the time.
Yeah. One more player. Do we have another player in round 7?
I got one more we got to talk about.
Yeah, this one's tough, man.
He doesn't want to draft him. If he played fantasy football, which he doesn't because he's just a hater, it seems like. But Miles Sanders wouldn't draft Miles Sanders. So why should we draft Miles Sanders? He said it himself. Yeah, don't draft me on your fantasy team. I'm going to get you 3 points a week. And he pretty much has when he's actually been healthy. The thing is that, when Miles Sanders does actually touch the ball, he looks reasonable. He looks okay. He looks fine. There's no upside. You're never going to know when to start him. He's depth as my RB5, but you're taking him around 7, which means you ain't getting your RB5 around 7 because you're going to have a pretty stacked one-sided team at that point. So avoid Miles Sanders, draft some of these other players, and just, Kevin, it doesn't have to be hard. Just don't draft these guys.
Yeah, with Sanders, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, shame on ever. This will be the 4th time. This will be the 4th time. I drafted Miles Sanders as a rookie in one dynasty league that I'm in, and he's yet to have a productive year. So, when you draft him, and he went 3rd overall in the dynasty rookie draft that season, right after I think Darius Geis was number 2 that year. Oops.
Josh
Sony
Jacobs
Michelle.
Was in class.
Oh, was that class? All right. I'm
thinking of
class. It was Sony Michelle and Geis. I don't remember, but I have him, and he's been a disappointment machine. He was drafted high. We thought he was going to be great, but he just can't put it together. Is this the year he puts it together? I don't think so. I don't even think the Eagles love him. They keep, notice what the Eagles always did. They kept bringing in Jordan Howard. They'd bring in a fatty for the goal line work. They'd bring in Kenneth Gainwell for the passing game work. And basically, Miles Sanders is a hyped up Antonio Gibson, a guy who will only get the ball between the 20s. That's Frank Gore. That's yardage, no scores, no touchdowns, no fantasy points for you. Fuck him. Don't draft him. Fuck that guy. I'd rather take my chances with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in round 8. Now, speaking of round 8, I think we'll close out the show. We'll close this one out, the breakdown, with round 8. So this will be the last round because after this, it's a lot of upside. You filled out your starting lineup. You're just filling up your bench. So, but there are some avoids in round 8 and some great picks in round 8, to be honest. So round 8 starts with Kadarius Toney, then Dak Prescott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, TJ Hockenson, Brandin Ayuk, Damian Harris, aforementioned, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, interesting upside, Chris Olave, Rashod Penny, Kareem Hunt, Matthew Stafford, and Treylon Burke. So that is your round 8 group. Now, for me, the biggest avoid, and I like this round all of those names were actually pretty decent. We talked about Damian Harris being like a better Antonio Gibson a few rounds later. Mm-hmm. I can get a starting running back for a team that gets goal line work this late. I'm in. Treylon Burks, a lot of upside, a lot of negativity has driven him down. A lot of upside. Chris Olave, maybe the most NFL ready wide receiver to come out of the draft. Rashod Penny, the starting running back for his team this year. There's a lot of good picks in round 8. He's the starter. Damian Harris and Rashod Penny are the starting running backs on their team. They're available in round 8. Pretty good. My avoid, and I love Kadarius Toney, is one of my favorite late picks. My big avoid for this round, though, and I don't see almost any path to a very good season for this player. There's like no version of the way the season plays out where I'm like, oh, wow, he had a great year. And that's Brandin Ayuk, wide receiver,
interesting,
San Francisco 49ers. Where is the scenario where we already talked about the passing volume will be so low, it's barely going to be enough to support Deebo Samuel. There's just no room here. Then you've got George Kittle as the second wide receiver on the team. So now you're bringing in, on a team that's only going to throw 25 times a game, you're talking about the WR3, who only got 6 or 7 targets last season per game without a running quarterback, with a passing quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. So Brandin Ayuk for me is a full avoid this year. Listen, again, talent is very good. He's a very talented wide receiver, but he's just the third wheel on a low volume offense. I don't see the upside. I'd rather take my chances with Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, you might say Marquez Valdes-Scantling is garbage. All right, probably is, but he's on the Chiefs and he's going to start, and he's fast and he runs really fast. I'll take that.
So for me, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say draft Brandin Ayuk, but I'm also saying don't draft Brandin Ayuk. I'm fine with where he's going here as a wide receiver 43. I mean, it's all upside, and I mean we're around 8. This is the nitpick territory, right? And to me, the guy that I just don't really feel comfortable drafting in this round is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I mean, he didn't do anything with Aaron Rodgers, who was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And yes, the early reports are in OTAs, hey, MVS is playing great. But yeah, I mean, he's in pads. He hasn't done anything in the NFL. And yes, he's he's a field stretcher. He's got the 4.37 speed, but they just drafted Sky Moore, who's 4.41. Mecole Hardman is still there. He's a speedster.
He stinks.
If they were to, I was thinking maybe they could play MVS in the slot as like a big slot. He paid 62% of his snaps in the slot. But then JuJu is probably going to play the slot. So Sky Moore profiles as a slot wide receiver. So I just don't like the fit. I mean, it's a bunch of wide receivers that are kind of redundant on this team.
I don't see him.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's been shooting up draft boards. Like, that hype out of the preseason has actually
the OTA hypes.
Yeah. I think I liked him a lot better. Number one, the reason I actually think his ADP will be different on the NFFC. I think he's a best ball guy. I think a lot of people I like Marquez Valdes-Scantling in best ball because the style of receiver that he is will probably produce a couple of pop games. But he's definitely not if you're in a season-long league, and this is where I think you're going with this, Shane. If you're in a season-long league where you have to make a sit-start decision at wide receiver, he won't be in your lineup when he pops off. He's just not going to be there because he's going to be low volume and very much dependent on big plays. So I don't think he'll be in your lineup in your regular season-long league, and that's a challenge. But again, it's nitpicky here.
To me, like the sweet spot for MVS would be like round 10. To me that's okay. I'm willing to take a shot on this, and even in my season-long league, because you're building upside on your bench, right? In season-long leagues, but in best ball round 8, I get it. That's actually really sharp. To your point, it's probably a best ball thing.
I'll give you a player like you can get a full round later. Yeah. Like, you want to talk about a reason not to take this guy? Robert Woods is available like 12 or 13 picks later. Is the WR1 uncontested for his team? Now, wherever they end up at the end of the year, irrelevant. You could get a locked-in WR1 for a team, low volume, versus like one guy in the mix of 4 wide receivers for their team. And there are 4 guys on the Chiefs that might get targets: Sky Moore, JuJu, Valdes-Scantling, and Hardman. there's a lot of guys there. We're not sure who's going to actually emerge as like a prime target, or if any of them will. And it's mostly Travis Kelce anyway, but if any of them will. So yeah, I'm down with that argument. I could get off of Valdez-Scantling in that spot. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Those are your players to avoid in 2022. First 8 rounds. Beyond here, there's no point in really getting into avoids. There's a fucking lot of avoids, and we start to get into sleepers that we want to target. Yeah. So we'll kind of come back with that. But for Flex Shane, for myself, we'll see you guys next time with more Bo calls. Deuces.